Эстония мемлекетіндегі танымал мектептердің директорлары.
Приглашая участников нашей панельной дискуссии, мы взяли на себя смелость немножко отойти от правил и пригласить на сцену бабушку 4 замечательных внуков, которая очень любит путешествовать и открывать новые места. Человек, который верит в то, что книга всегда помогает вернуть баланс и очистить голову от повседневных забот, а также по совместительству директор Tallinn Secondary School of Science, мисс Энна Саар.
Добро пожаловать. Келесі спикер, қаржы саласының маманы, кәсіпкер, және өзін педагогика саласымен тығыз байланыстырып, елімізде бірнеше мектептердің, соның ішінде жекеменшік Дана мектебі, Еркемай балабақшасының негізін қалаушы Күләнда Уалихановна Батырбекова. Қошеметтеріңіз. Келесі спикеріміз. Келесі қонағымыз 3 бүлдіршіннің әкесі. Әуесқой, балықшы. Өмір бойы оқуды ұстанып және кітап оқудан шабыттанып отыратын. Бұл әріптесіміздің қолдауында мүмкін емес деген сөз жоқ. Өйткені ынта мен еңбек болған жағдайда кез келген мақсатқа жетуге болады деп сенеді. Білім инновация халықаралық қоғамдық қорының вице-президенті Ержан Аубакиров. Қошеметтеріңіз.
Счастливый папа 3 замечательных детей, книголюб, который очень хорошо играет на тамбре, и по совместительству директор школы Тамас Space School Бисенгалиев Нурбулат Романович.
Еліміздегі ең жас директорлердің бірі, әуесқой әнші, Рух жастар театрының жетекшісі, Дара бизнес академиясы мектеп лицейінің директоры Ахмарал Бекбаева. Қош келдіңіз.
Еще раз добро пожаловать, коллеги. Приглашая вас таким образом, мы хотели подчеркнуть, что директор школы – это в первую очередь человек, в первую очередь личность и пример.
Құрметті спикерлер, алдарыңызда тұрған микрофон қосулы. Сол себепті бүгінгі біздің талқылауымызға белсенділік атсалысуларыңызды сұраймыз. Біз әртүрліміз, бірақ мүддеміз бір тақырыбындағы өзіміздің ойымызды ортаға салу мүмкіндігі туындап отыр. Сіздердің бай тәжірибелеріңіз бүгінгі тақырыпты жан-жақты ашады деп сенім артамыз.
Сегодня предложенная нами тема звучит «Мы разные, но мы об одном». И целью нашего сегодняшнего разговора будет увидеть, действительно ли мы настолько разные, или все-таки у нас с вами больше общего.
Құрметті спикерлер, әңгімемізді конференцияның тақырыбынан бастайық. Балалар жылы, оқыту, тәрбиелеу, жақсы көру. Сіз басқарып отырған мектептің қызметінде осы 3 негізгі аспект қамтылған ба?
Учить, воспитывать и любить – это все, что должна делать современная школа, или что-то можно добавить, что-то убрать?
Еркін, өздеріңіздің пікірлеріңіз.
Добрый вечер. Мне очень приятно быть здесь. И моя школа очень старая. Моему школу 141 лет. То значит, почему-то это до сих пор есть школа, работает ежедневно школа. И это так 100 и больше лет. Поэтому я думаю, очень важно, что у нас есть большие и много традиций. Потому что это мы и чувствуем, и передадим своим детям, внучкам, и они тоже держат, потому что государство маленькое, народ маленький. Если мы этого не делаем, никто без нас, от нас ничего от этого не делает. И поэтому я думаю, это очень важно знать, откуда мы идем и куда мы идем.
Спасибо большое. Қалған спикерлер.
Сәлеметсіздер ма? Тақырып өте керемет. Оқыту, тәрбиелеу және баланы сүю. Қазақта мынандай сөз бар. Сүтпен кірген мінез сүйекпен кетеді деген. Бұның астарында үлкен бір мағына жатыр негізі. Барлық отбасында және бұл мектепте басталады. Біз ең басты ретінде баланың мінезін алу керек деп ойлаймын. Мінез тәрбиесі бұл қазақтың негізгі болмысын білдіреді. Бұл ең бірінші отбасында басталады және бұл балабақша мен мектептің алғашқы қадамдарында. Егер мінезді орынға қойып, мында Алихан Бөкейханның бір сөзі бар, мен әрдайым есіме түсірем. Ұлтқа қызмет білімнен емес, мінезден деген өте керемет сөзі бар. Бұл сөз негізі білім керек еместі білдіртпейді. Бірақ шын мәнінде еліне, жеріне қызмет етем, дамытам деген адам мінезі дұрыс болу керек. Мінезі орында болған, тәрбиесі орында болған адам еліне әрқашан жарамды болады деп ойлаймын. Бұл негізгі қазіргі біздің жалпы ұлтымыздың негізгі білім концепциясында осы қазіргі күн тәртібі, үлкен күн тәртібі бар. Бүгінгі тақырыпта керемет екен. Және бұлардың екі мұғалім жағына қараған бетінде баланы шын мәнінде сүйе білу керек. Егер бұл екі отбасының берілген жалпы тәрбие мен мұғалімнің балаға деген қарым-қатынасы екеуі біріккен кезде шын мәнінде біз өте керемет бір ұлт тәрбиелейміз.
Рахмет. Өзгелеріңіз?
Мен толықтай екі спикермен келісем. Бірінші тәрбиеден басталады. Өзіміздің мектебімізде Thomas Paine School'да көбі бізде бастауыш сыныптары, сондықтан 0-ші сыныптан 4-ші сыныпқа дейін бізде 15 шақты класс бар. Әрине, баланың тәрбие ең бастысы ол ата-анамен де жұмыс. Жалғыз тек енді жекеменшік мектеп болғанымен де ата-ананың барлығы айтады, біздер мысалға сізге төлейміз, жібереміз, күні бойы таңнан кешке дейін бала сіздің мектепте деп. Бірақ та соның өзінде де біздер ата-анамен де жұмыс істейміз, жекеменшік мектеп болсақ та. Мен ойлаймын, барлық мектептерде жұмыс істейді, бірақ та енді жеке мектеп болғасын, бастауыш мектеп болғасын.
Сіздердің алдыңызда тұрған енді қаржыгер
What I must say is that the idea of a private school and a private nursery must also be scaled and rolled out in villages, in rural areas. My personal goal in relation to nurseries is introducing the national education. I think we must take a more globalized approach to education in general, because the president of the country often mentioned that we need to bring the village closer to the city. There must be no gap between the rural and urban area. I am from Almaty originally, but I prefer working in rural areas. Annie said that she comes from a school that is 141 years old. I think we need to have the same traditions. What do you think, Akmaral? Greetings, dear colleagues. First of all, I would like to thank the organizers of this conference, because the teachers present here have a great opportunity for networking and experience sharing, finding new insights and tendencies for their schools. This is a great opportunity for all of us. Kulanda Walikhanovna, I know you very well. You are our school's mentor. So if we talk about the ages of the school, whether like 10 or 100 years, but we cooperate with Tammuz too. This is a new private school. Our Business Academy Dara is only 3 years old, and for me, it's a great opportunity to meet more experienced colleagues with longer traditions. As for the topic of the conference, I think we must start from love, because a child comes into this life as the product of love. Only then there is education, and then there is teaching. Learning itself is lifelong, and for a person to be a good person and to properly learn the knowledge that's proposed, it all comes with love and education. Recently, we traveled to Georgia. He mentioned the same. Famous Georgian pedagogue Amanishvili, he also talked about love. And the Russian pedagogues say the same. Pedagogical science says that love will save the world. And we are here also because of love for children, and we love our profession. Thank you for your opinion. Let us look at its concept separately. Today, our schools are facing serious challenges. The children who were admitted this year in the first grade, they will retire in 2079. So we need to lay the foundation that will be relevant throughout this period. So in this context, what is it that the current school must teach its children? What's most important is to be a good person. Always stay a good person. At the same time, we must understand that they take a lot from computers and from internet, and we must find some counterbalance to that to ensure them being humans and ensure that we feel each other and find something new in each other. There must be a certain balance of powers. As you have seen from the recent 2 years, those have been difficult times through the pandemic. The children couldn't see each other, they didn't see other children, and they couldn't keep learning to communicate with each other. And we need to learn certain lessons from that, and we need to be open. We need to teach them several languages, and we need to teach them to be autonomous, because what's important for a person to act is to know what they act on and how. And we need to work with parents too, to be informed about what we are doing at school to their children. It takes joint efforts to grow a small good person together. Therefore, we need to engage good partners, because school never walks alone. It may only benefit from partnership to grow a new generation that is good and clever.
Thank you very much. Now, as for education, in the 21st century, we all live in unusual times. The 20th century was the industrial one, and now it is an innovative century. In the 20th century, a lot of knowledge was developed and provided, and I remember with great thanks the knowledge that was given to me during the Soviet times. We had great teachers, but the requirements of those times were adapted to the requirements of the time. Now we live in different times, and Kazakhstan is a part of the global world. The changes that take place in the US, in Europe, definitely reflect on us. We should not think that all of that happens to other people somewhere else, and we actually discussed that a lot, and 70% of research take place in the West, and we can think that these trends will not come to us. However, this is not the case. All the changes take place very quickly in education as well, and we need reforms for that. I did not work in primary school, but I was the director in the school. When I was the director principal, 70% of my school was linked to the work in primary school, and my experience was mainly linked to studying students of the 7th and 8th grade. However, primary school was very interesting to me because the abstract thinking of children is formed between the age of 3 and 10. If we cannot form that, the child, even if this child gets accepted to NAS, will not be able to acquire this knowledge later on. So I believe that these skills need to be formed starting at kindergarten. So it is extremely important to be curious, to search for knowledge. The child needs to be able to ask the right questions, and we need to make sure that children actually want to receive knowledge. That is why the preschool teachers and the primary school teachers need to unlock this potential. They need to unlock this capacity. In this case, children will turn into citizens who can serve their motherland. So these reforms are closely linked to primary school, and I believe that the search for knowledge will become the main driver. Thank you. We fully agree with you. The love for knowledge and the curiosity are the important factors. We look at teaching and how we should teach and what we should teach in the modern school. Please, could you share your vision through the lens of your own school? As for teaching and educating, I would like to answer to the previous question. I myself is a financial expert, and I know that a lot of investments are put into education. And let me share one example with you. In agriculture, for example, there are poultry farms, and at these poultry farms, in order to breed chicken, we need to put investment, and in order to get poultry meat, we also invest a lot. 1 year we give to our chicken and sheep to grow, and a year later we slaughter them. What about children? Starting from early age, we want to invest a lot of money into children, but how much should we invest into our children? We need to have a lot of investment into the children, into those who are already born and those that are not yet born. We need to make sure that children are surrounded by beauty. We need to make sure that children actually go to school and become citizens who love their motherland. Children should grow into honest and good adults. If a lot of love was put into the child will respect the family, the school, the alma mater, and only then will we be able to raise a true generation of people who value and respect the knowledge and the aim for global knowledge. If investments are put into our teachers, it will be very good as well. This is the trend we're seeing in the last couple years. But we also forgot about kindergarten. We need to accept the fact that there are certain difficulties that kindergartens face. They have to rent some space, and in order to provide good education to our children, we need to make sure that we provide the right upbringing to them and we provide the right knowledge. That will give us good results. I've worked in this school for 2 years. we talk today about teaching and educating children. I believe that schools should have a certain curricular. We should also look at the curricular of private schools. We need to make sure that they have the state license. Of course, private schools vary. We have about 10 of those, or 20. These are the schools that have private curricular. And there are 12 types. There are different types of schools. There are STEM schools, and there are also public schools. They all have their own educational programs, and there is also integration between the private schools and, for example, Cambridge. And we know that there are some schools you have to pay quite a lot for educating your children in these schools. But these schools have their own educational program. Of course, again, they all different, but they do provide knowledge to children. They have their own methodology, and they have different modern technologies. You said it yourself yesterday. It's important that children like their classroom, that they have their own desk and chair, and children need to be surrounded by this good environment in the classroom. Let me add something else. We also said that we need to focus on what we teach and how we teach our children. We need to teach our children how to ask questions, how to conduct research. We need to guide our children. If I'm not mistaken, we should make sure we develop the right skills, such as also the skill to learn. I agree with the opinion of my colleagues. Why do we call ourselves a business academy? We have also developed a strategy for our business academy. We had different areas: humanities, sciences, financial literacy should also be one of the important subjects in our school. We also wrote textbooks. In the beginning, there was no interest in these subjects. And our main area was business. That is why we supported that and chose this area.
However, we see a deficit of the relevant textbooks for financial, economic literacies, but we provide elective disciplines when those finance and business related disciplines, both in Kazakh and English languages, and we engage the best interpreters, the best translators to ensure there are textbooks for those disciplines. And today in the 10th and the 11th classes and 11th grades, we have teaching on this financial literacy, as well as introduction to business. It is taught by the practitioners from the area, because as of today, for instance, barbershops are a popular business, and if we know a success story by an owner of a barbershop, and we can see that there are people who have achieved success in this area, we engage these people to speak to our children and share their success stories. And based on that, our children during the lesson, they would kind of virtually open a barbershop. Or for instance, we can use a success story from Kazakh business, for instance, a confectionery business called Happy Cake. And we use that for those success cases for our lessons too. And when we ask children, who do you want to become? They do not necessarily or readily tell what they are going to be. The parents usually say, you are going to be a lawyer or a finance specialist. But what children feel inside, we are not sure actually. But today empathy is more valuable, more developed in children, and we need to relate to those children's emotions inside to make sure that they have the proper career orientation. Therefore, we are launching startup projects where children prepare for startups. We teach them to conduct, for instance, market research, and within 2 years, we will get one startup project. And it starts in the 7th, the 8th grade, and they are already, preparing, trying to save some money for their future equity for their startups. Our academy, our schools are mainly providing academic knowledge, and we are fostering the strength in our children. But there are also soft skills plus 2 hard skills, and it is the private schools who actually focus additionally on soft skills plus 2 subject matter courses that are taught academically at our schools. Today, the children are learning to be leaders, to get motivated. For instance, at our Dara school, we have introduced our own currency. It's called Dariki, to raise this entrepreneurial spirits in our children. And there is a Dara store, Dara bank. There is a certain deposit with a certain interest on the savings that the children would make when they save their Doriks, or they might sell and buy something at the Dara store. So these are the skills that they are learning inside the school. And this is something that our parent community is also appreciating. And they understand that, and that their children are really very enthusiastic about this idea. They save money, and frankly, our children are very open to this new experience. And eventually, we have grown to be a team with our children. We love them. We tell them that you are great, you did great job. Please take step by step, go towards your goal. So we support them. We have this support and love environment. So to my mind, I think that, and I think that the colleagues would support me, we have all kinds of approaches within your school, but what I can see is that there is everyday routine work that you, the efforts that you attach. So, what are the values that the current modern school must foster in children?
Recently, one of our parents, who is also the graduate of our school, came to me. And we had lunch together. And at the end, he said, I am selling my company, I have a lot of money. I can give money to the school. But this is not the most important. I want to give my time to the school. I want to do something important, or whatever you need me to do. I can come teach a class, for example. He understood how important the school is and how much the school gave him, and now he wants to give back. It means that we are now teaching those kids who will come back later. We have a lot of graduates who are now teachers, and quite often the parents participate in our classes, and they also share their experience with their children. Senior students teach the younger students. They also organize into some extracurricular clubs. Maybe those who need help with math, they can get that. The school is open at 6:30 a.m. and we close the school at 10 p.m. Why? Because those who want to be at school, they can do whatever they want, and be it teachers, children, they can organize whatever they want, maybe some sport games. It's very important because they will need all those skills later in life. It's extremely important to be open and give others what you have yourself. Share the knowledge that you have. You can always be the smartest, but it's more important to be a good person and exhibit social skills. How do you behave? How do you work in a group? How do you create a company? How do you conduct research? How do you work with universities? How do you interact with other people? I believe that we teach our kids how to behave and how to interact with others, with other people. This is extremely important. People need to know that they're not alone and they're always in a society. They always have someone else by their side. This is important even for the startups. They don't work just on yesterday. You saw what they did, and they did it all together. When they do it together, they create something new. We don't really have the close connection with a person online. It's important to have offline. Let me continue, please. I want to say a couple of words. Modern school is our family business. And my family runs this business. We build it together, and we work day and night on that. We also develop some new ideas, and now we see the fruit of our labor. We have this one girl. She graduated from Nazarbayev University. She also studied in KIMEP. Now she is a director general, and she also works in the academy. There is another girl. She graduated from the major of international economics, international finance. Another girl, she is in culture and art now. In our school, we have these talented kids who started there, but they're also happy kids. For us, this is what's most important. It's not just the business for us. This is about the children. We need to make sure that our kids are happy, that they don't just receive the knowledge and the skill. They need to be happy to come back to school and study. They will get their jobs, they will be successful, I am sure of it. We don't want them just sitting on sofas all day long. We need to prepare them for life. And of course, all of that starts at the kindergarten. We need to make sure that our teachers are happy, they're happy with their work, that they have some places where they can rest, where they can have their food. We also need to make sure that we're all human beings, that we're all humane one to another. We don't want our kids to learn anything bad. We make sure that the teachers and the parents surround the children with love. Thank you very much, Ms. Kulan. I have a question. How can we make sure that we teach the right values to the children? Maybe doing it in school is not the right way. However, we need to make sure that children receive well-rounded education. They should also have all the values. And today it is very important. We need to make sure that children don't just learn the knowledge and the skills. They need to be prepared for the life after the school. What should we do from our end? What can we do? I believe we need to make sure that our children receive these values. Can we do it just in school? We need to do it together with parents, with teachers, all the stakeholders. And now these values are extremely important. Let me give you an example, the theory of garden. It exists, of course, but is it really used? Values can be different. Our schools need to decide on these values, first of all. We need to set certain goals. Of course, everybody chooses their own values, and we need to discuss it among teachers and parents. And children always look up to their teachers. I can give you another example. We went to the UK. We visited a school. This school also had certain values such as respect to everybody and anything. And one stray dog actually walked into the school and they treated the dog with respect as well. For us, it was an interesting example. And teachers also discuss different situations with the children, discuss their potential response to that. Of course, there are certain issues that can be quite difficult in this regard as well. I would like to add, of course, now modern schools have their own strategies and missions and visions, but we also need to have nationwide missions. I know, for example, this from the schools in Vietnam. I visited some schools in Vietnam. And there they explained to me what the national values are, what the school values are. These values also include the right way to cross the street. This was quite interesting for me to hear about all these national values. We discussed that yesterday. If we were to wear a traditional costume to the school, this would be acceptable in Vietnam starting from the 7th grade. But otherwise there is also a uniform. All of that was quite interesting to know. Children are also taught to clean up after them. When we visited the city schools, we did not see much of a difference between urban schools and rural schools. Children play with toys and then they clean up afterwards. I believe that we could practice that here as well, in maybe private schools. I believe this way we could teach some really good values. All those values that we mentioned today are extremely important, such as respect, curiosity of the environment, the practical skills, the values, both school values and national values. I also studied abroad and I had a lot of friends abroad. That was Bolashak educational program. And it was interesting for me to see how Kazakh girls and boys behave abroad. There are a lot of Kazakhstani students abroad, and in my opinion, they really portray the values that the school teach them. And especially when we're abroad, we need to make sure that we transpose the values that were taught to us. And we need to continue with these values. It doesn't matter whether we go to the Russian school or the Kazakh school or maybe an international school, the values should be there. And in our school on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, we were allowed to wear traditional clothing, and I think it was really good for children. It was a really good practice. And it was not just for the children, it was also for the teachers and for the personnel. Imagine everybody shows up at school wearing traditional clothing, and then parents started doing the same. It was a great experience. And we did that throughout the year. We also had some areas where we could play traditional Kazakh games. In our cafeteria, we also were served traditional food. These were the national days. Especially it was popular between among the children from the 1st to the 5th grade. We also had special subjects of the national games or national customs, traditional. And this was well received by the children, by the parents, by the teachers. We had different traditions for the New Year and for other holidays. All of that was done in the Kazakh language. Again, it was called the National Days. Actually, I agree with what you just said, because when a person comes into this world, the person comes into the team of the family. Then they go to the kindergarten, and this kid is surrounded by other kids, and then these kids are curious, they want to learn more. And then comes school and university, and the person is always surrounded by other people. Teamwork includes parents, teachers, and children. We know that pandemic showed that Kazakhstan was not ready for it, especially when it comes to medicine and education. Everybody was in shock. A special shock was among the rural schools and state schools that did not have their own digital platforms. They only knew about Zoom, and they'd never heard of Teams or Google platform. They learned about it much later, and they had to create their own programs. And then parents understood how difficult it is to work with children, and they said, please open the school at least for one day. We're ready to send our children 24/7. We will pay a lot, but it's so difficult. We said, you're only talking about one child. Now imagine how it is for teachers who work with 20, 30, 40 children. I believe that back then the parents realized what a difficult job that teachers have. And from then on, I believe, we saw the change in the parents' attitude. Now it is much easier to work with parents. It is probably one of the advantages of the pandemic. Thank you very much. Today we discussed the issue of values quite a lot during this session, and of course there is still a lot that we can discuss here. And this topic is very important, as well as educating, teaching, and upbringing our children. This is the foundation of the education, and these are the values. I believe that you shared your opinion with us, your experience with us as far as educating and teaching is concerned. Next, we would like to continue with your thought, and as pandemics showed, not everybody was ready for it, and now we should move on to the next concept. I believe that it's important to show love through different actions. What it is to love in the context of school.
strange question. Because, you know, how can you work at school if you don't love children? I just cannot imagine that. Otherwise, nobody would have worked at school if we had no love for children. Because I would speak for the teacher. The teacher is a very important person because this is someone we entrust daily, something most valuable in our lives, our children. And they spend 7, 8 hours with those people, half of the day when the children are awake or even longer. And the connection they establish is probably something nobody else would understand. Therefore, I think that this is the kind of love that is different to express in words, because it's a feeling, and you have this huge feeling that overwhelms you despite the fact that you're experienced, you're knowledgeable, you're a good person who wants to give something. And the children actually give back. And indeed, there is a feeling that it is pleasant to be with each other, spending the day with each other and growing there. And this feeling is so good that it will be taken away from school and passed to the next generation, because if we don't pass it to the next generation, nobody else would do that for us. Therefore, it's essential to work together and always find very good teachers, which is a very difficult task to do. I don't know how it works in your country, but for us it is difficult. It's a big problem for us. For the recent decade, actually, nobody understands why we don't have a new generation of teachers. Probably the government has forgotten to do something in time, and now even the parents already understand that this is the key issue for the state, to have knowledgeable people who would cooperate with the government, work as teachers, work as citizens. And our major capital is people. Estonia is a small country, and we can't get those people from anywhere than school. Yes, that was very important. It's really important to love children. As I've mentioned, I am a mother of 3 girls. They all went to the nursery. I'm a finance person. When I thought about nursery, I thought it's just oatmeal and going to potty. That's it. What else is there about a nursery? But now when I am raising my grandchildren and we send them to a nursery, frankly, I have changed the way I was thinking. I understood that nursery is the core element of education. I started valuing the work of pedagogues, the level of care that they show, the quality of their work. I think that they are great specialists, and I want to just give you a bow for all of the great qualities that you possess. Why wouldn't I love children? Of course I love them. I have children, I have grandchildren. They come to my place on weekends, we go walking together, and I can imagine how hard it is to look the same way after like 20-25 children. As of today, in our state, the regulation is that there are 2 educators for 1 nursery group from morning till night. And I understand that within this time, you need to invest a lot of love and also make a lot of investments into all of those efforts. But what's most important for us is to appreciate the position of a teacher, the position of an educator in our society. I understand that I am mainly an investor, a financier, but I understand how important big love is. This is another currency that must be invested in all of this process. I am sure that love is important. We need to love our children. We need to think about children's development and show great respect to our teachers and educators. And everything that comes from love will grow into big, great projects. Well, this is so great. You probably have really happy children. Well, love is an emotional relationship. What do you think about it? Well, love, I think this is the core competence of a teacher. I was taught at a lyceum. I worked as a teacher. Now I'm a principal. So I know this way from the first step to the last one. So I can see that love is something that penetrates all levels. And what's most important to my mind is the love of a teacher for their profession. There's always an environment where there are interconnections between the teachers and children, and I always ask the same question to our teachers. Would you send your own children to be pedagogues in future? Like, frankly, would you send your child, if they come up to you and they say, I want to be a teacher, what would you say? Would you say, great? If you say yes, that means you love your profession. If you say no, you would say like, oh, if you become a teacher, you will be just like me, working all day and all night, just like me. That would mean that you don't love your profession. So this is the major indicator of your love for your own profession. In Astana, there is a great director over a secondary school. I really respect that person. So he is a great pedagogue. He is a great principal. He said, my daughter said, I've been thinking of sending my own daughter to be a pedagogue. I took the decision only after 2 years before sending my own daughter to be a future teacher, because this was a difficult decision, but then he agreed actually, and he sent her. So let me speak in Russian. I want to go back to the second question, and I must say that everything depends and stems from the values of school. If there is well-being as the school's value, that would mean the well-being of the students in class, the well-being of teachers, the well-being of parents, and how it's manifested. I think we as a new school must think about it. Another thing is the culture of care, so how it is manifested. We need to look for that in a school. When you go to school, you see a parking lot, and even the culture of parking your car is also important, because since September we've been training our parents how to park their cars, their vehicles. All of the markups, all of the numbers are down there in the parking lot. The way you come into school, what you feel when you come into school, how the security meets you, how the class leader meets you, how the principal meets the children and you. So every morning, 7:30, the principal is the one who meets and greets everybody at the hall in the morning. This is what we do at Thomas. This is the way we show how we care. Not only in class, when we talk about love, this is how we show our love. This is how we show that we care, starting from the very entry into the class. We do it also through nutrition. 30% of the pay that goes into school is nutrition. I cannot say that we make like huge money, but we really focus on proper healthy food, breakfast, second breakfast, lunch, so that the child is always well nutritioned. It's a full day school, so they are at school from morning till night. Therefore, we introduce this well-being culture of care. This is something that you should arrange at any school. This is what I thank you so much. Well, this led me to a question. A good principal, is he or she a good teacher? Or a good principal is a good manager? So, good principal. We've mentioned a lot of aspects, and we mentioned that we need to arrange this culture, those values, but it's really difficult to ensure. So, a successful principal, is that a pedagogue, or a successful principal is a manager? Well, this is a great question. I think that a good principal is someone who knows pedagogy well. If he or she is a teacher, it's also good because they would have profound understanding of how the inner works of school are operating. I still have 4 subjects that I teach because I want to keep in touch with young people, the way they behave at school, in class, the way they think, to feel how the work goes. I know how long preparation takes for a lesson. But at the same time, you have to have this business acumen, because if I cannot count money properly as a principal, how would I be caring for my personnel? Caring for people working for me is very crucial. Because the subject matter, the subject teachers, they are working, they are doing their job. My job is to ensure good environment for them to do so. But that's all depending on money. Where to find money, is something that you need business acumen for. How you budget things, how you allocate the budget. So money is always somewhere out there, but you need to somehow raise them, So, therefore, it's really crucial that everybody who's engaged in school, like principal, teachers, children, parents, that they all interact well together. Well, if there were medical workers right here, sitting here, I would ask whether a chief surgeon must be a good manager. But I would say about pedagogues, I must say that the principal must be good teachers. For instance, if we worked at a big plant, I would give you a metaphor of proper calibration. Calibration is something that you feel, and I think to be a good principal, you need to be a good teacher. Well, I think differently. I think that a good principal must be a good manager. If we look at other schools compared to them, we understand that private schools probably, the private school's goal is to make money. So successful learning, successful teaching is absolutely important, but the private schools are making money. But still, we understand that a part of our success, a major part of our success, is to ensure proper pedagogical work. Well, again, I'm a finance person, let me remind you. And we are at a conference. And I, as a manager, understand that I need very good managerial skills. But under me, when I rule a school, they must be very good teachers, so that they won't have any headaches about where to take resources, where to get paper, where to get materials, and so on. This is me, the manager, who is going to have those headaches to ensure all of the resources for my teachers. Therefore, I think principal is, first of all, a good manager. Well, I agree, but I think that each principal must first walk in the shoes of a teacher, like walk the path of a teacher, have experience of giving lessons and know and have understanding what curriculum is and so on. For instance, I usually find time to be next to children to feel and understand what they feel, what they think. So when answering the question whether it's a good teacher or a good manager, I think it's the wrong question. The good principal is a good mentor. It's like a big figure, and he must have certain financial acumen, must have certain skills. So being a good mentor, you need to keep developing. So you develop from a good pedagogue, and there is no age even limit. I remember when Shakarin became the first young principal at School 54, which was a state school, when he was 27. Everybody talked about him, and I said at the moment, well, I never thought it was possible. Actually, you need to prove yourself, keep developing, keep learning, and never stop and never be complacent with what you have achieved. So you are the one who can let yourself to be a good manager at any school, whether it's a public or a private school. And let me add about love. Today we've been discussing beliefs, education, but the major problem or like relevant issues are parents. We all know that we work a lot with parents. It's like sometimes we are not educating children, but we are educating parents, even those things about the parking lot and stuff like that. But again, the prerequisite for this work with both children and parents is empathy, is love. This is where we are stemming from. Today's children are very good at empathy. They show their emotions very openly. This is a different generation. Therefore, when there is someone misbehaving at school, we usually invite parents, but we engage psychologists in this work. And the parents would say to their children when they misbehave, what else do you want? You get everything you need. You have the latest iPhone and stuff like that. This is a case from the practice. I have heard that. And I said, like, sir, if you view happiness only as latest iPhones and going to mall, you are probably understanding the way and the idea of parenthood really wrong. Because the behavior of the child is something that comes from the family, and probably it is the values in your family that might have been, making this child behaving this way. So I have said in the beginning that everything starts from love, and everything can be implemented with love. So we need to be really good psychologists as principals. Don't forget that. We came in from different schools, but we share common interests. We are about the same thing. We talk education, we talk teaching. We have some time. Let us remember our childhood. Look at those cubes and write down what's needed to develop a modern school. Just one word to build a modern school. Take those markers, think
principals. With comprehensive schools have been invited to this conference. They're speaking, they're sharing their learning at this conference. And Kazakhstani and international experts are all coming together. I think this is one of the great values of this conference. And in other words, what you're doing is stakeholder inclusion, and people have been talking throughout the conference of how important it is that all of the stakeholders be included: teachers and school leaders, parents, academics, social partners, policymakers, and students. And there we have immediately an example of some of the stakeholders. The rural schools that were here and that NIS is continuing to work with. As was said here, NIS is learning from them, and NIS is trying to share some of its knowledge with them. So NIS is walking the talk. In a sense, it's doing what it says it believes in. And I think one of the great values of this conference is that as these stakeholders and many more are coming together, this is an opportunity to talk about common, or help develop a common knowledge base, common reference points, common understandings and common goals. For if we cannot align our plans, if our understandings don't align, then it's very easy for a system to start pulling one way and the other way. It's so important, the work that is happening here, the dialogue that is happening here. One of the things that's been pointed out at this conference, the research from Nazarbayev University, was that teachers often feel that, oi, can we go back? There. That the teachers were saying that through this research we found out that the teachers were feeling that there is a divide between practice, research, and policy. And once again, I believe one of the things that this conference is doing is it's bringing together practice. It's bringing in various stakeholders who work on policy. It's talking about policy, and it's bringing in research, and therefore is helping. Now I'm going back, and this is going forward. So go figure. My apologies. We don't have the old clicker, the big powerful clicker? It's gone. It's okay. So this is another key function, I think, of this whole forum, and a very important one. You are helping to reconcile tensions, bring those tensions in the open, taking responsibility and co-creating new value. I've also been struck by the fact that equity is a key driver, and it's been a term that's been raised many, many times throughout these 2 days. And not only have you spoken about equity, when you've spoken about equity, we've always arrived at inclusion and the importance of inclusion. And as David Rodriguez said, this is our human duty to work for this, to work for an equitable society, to work for an equitable world, to work for everyone, to ensure every child benefits from the education that we're seeking to provide. So it's an issue of taking responsibility, coping, and trying to create value, but as has been pointed out, that is a very difficult thing to do. And as has been pointed out time and time and again, that requires support. All of the stakeholders need support in taking on that responsibility. And as we heard in this last panel, the heart and the mind are always there. We need empathy, we need social-emotional skills if we're going to, when we're working together, when we're trying to innovate, we need social and emotional skills, we need empathy. So it's the mind and the heart always walking hand in hand. But in fact, as has been pointed out, it's the mind, it's the heart, it's the body. It's one ecosystem, and we need to be looking after it. There were several people who talked about that, including Aitingul. I'm sorry, Aitingul, I don't remember your last name at the moment. And I think what we could say, or I would like to say as a concluding remark about NIS, is that, my goodness, you have knowledge. You have worked hard to systematize that knowledge, to share that knowledge. You've developed systems. You're working nationally and internationally. And at the same time, you have heart. And I leave you with that slide.
Осындай керемет пікір үшін
Thank you very much to Mr. Mihista. And now we would like to watch a brief video of our conference during these 2 days. I talked about exams during this conference, how we need to sit in exams. I'm very happy I participated at this conference. I got really inspired by NIS. We need to change. We need to change for the sake of the future. And I noticed that many speakers talked about the relevant issues, and we learned a lot from this conference. That's great. Dear participants of the conference, making all the children in the world happy, educating them, teaching and loving them. Thank you.
Collaboration in educating and building the happiness of the children of the world. Thank you very much.
Олай болса, қарсы алыңыздар.
With that, we would like to invite the students from the Ural School.
Тамаша.
That's great. We thank the artist, and now we announce that today's conference with the topic Teaching, Educating and Loving Children is coming to an end. The conference is adjourned.
This conference, Teaching, Educating, Loving the EF Children in Kazakhstan, is declared closed. We hope to see you next time as well. Thank you very much. Жақсы күндерде кездескенше.
Have a great day and goodbye.